A tribute to the first decade of...
Talk of the devil is being taken very seriously after a teenage student showed up at school with a hunting rifle and opened fire. The rampage allegedly tied to Satanism. Devil worship in the Bible Belt, how serious is it? Tonight, some eye-opening claims about other teenage satanic cults and some gruesome rituals. Here's Rob Stafford.
You might remove the heart. The group might eat that heart. I tell folks, when you go to bed at night, there's a whole other world wakes up out there.
It's a world where people worship the devil, Satan.
I think it has been broken and they've gotten a body out of it.
Professor Johnny Purvis teaches education at the University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg. This father of two never thought he'd be investigating allegations of satanic activity. But that's just what he started doing 10 years ago when he says it began showing up in schools across his state.
It's not something to be played with, toyed with, or laughed at.
Police around Mississippi say they work with Purvis investigating evidence of everything from grave robbing to animal sacrifice and even the drinking of blood. Besides, Purvis insists the signs of satanic worship are all around us.
By and large, it starts off something relatively insignificant and certainly can grow from that point.
Perhaps even grow to murder.
Are you a devil worshiper?
That's the allegation you've heard from Pearl, Mississippi, where 16-year-old Luke Woodham is accused of being the hitman for a cult of teenagers called the Croth. Woodham opened fire at the high school. 2 students were killed, 7 others wounded. Then police found his mother stabbed to death, and they made another discovery.
This investigation has led us to satanic activity.
Woodham and 6 other teenagers have all pleaded innocent to charges of conspiring to kill fellow students and parents. Authorities say 18-year-old Grant Boyette was the ringleader.
He believed that Satan was a powerful force, and he believed that Satan had the power to give you what you prayed for.
Rick Brown was one of Boyette's closest childhood friends, but says 3 years ago, Boyette became fascinated with worshiping Satan and studying Hitler.
He was extremely impressed with Adolf Hitler's ability to influence people and to control people and manipulate people.
Brown believes the Croth put him on its hit list after he tried and failed to break Boyette and Woodham away from Satanism.
Do you believe that Grant Boyette was leading a satanic cult in the town of Pearl?
I believe so.
When you heard that Luke Woodham had been charged with murdering his mother and opening fire at the school, did you immediately think Grant Boyette?
Yes, sir. Immediately.
The murders were horrible enough, but what worried the people of Pearl even more was the realization that this crime might have been linked to a satanic cult. How could kids from a God-fearing conservative town be involved in devil worship? It's something that stunned this small community, but was no surprise to experts who've been tracking cults for years. How many satanic sites have you seen in your lifetime?
I would say probably I've seen 30 plus.
30 sites.
Yes, sir. Easy that many.
And he says he's looked at hundreds of other cases. Based on those, Purvis says what happened in Pearl fits a familiar pattern. A group of intelligent outcasts gathered around a leader, perhaps dabbling with the occult out of rebellion, but soon drawn into the point of torturing family pets. Police say Woodham's diary describes his conversion in graphic detail with passages like this. Fill your heart, mind, and soul with hatred. Hate until you can't hate anymore. Most of all, hate the accursed God of Christianity.
Just like in gang activity, wannabes are the most dangerous. They're trying, to make their niche in this arena.
You may be skeptical, but many police investigators in Mississippi are not. In fact, they went with us when we visited places they and Purvis called satanic worship sites.
This is a graveyard where you found evidence of satanic activity?
Yes, sir. We believe it is because of the bodies being removed from several graves here, and this happens to be one of them.
When I was in high school, some kids broke into the cemetery, vandalized, and they weren't called Satanists. They were called juvenile delinquents. Is this hysteria?
No, sir. No, sir, not at all. Satan been around for many, many thousands of years and will be around. It's not hysteria.
Just a few miles away, Purvis showed us this fire pit. He says devil worshippers skinned and burned animals here. We found at least a half-dozen rotting hides. But is this really devil worship or just delinquency?
A lot of kids fantasize about a lot of evil things, but are they Satan worshipers?
You start playing around with it, it can suck you in. For example, some sociologists will call this satanic tourism. They're just, you know, going through that stage. But oftentimes what happens, they'll get into these games and get deeper and deeper.
Though no one has any numbers to suggest how widespread it is, authorities believe they've uncovered satanic activity across the nation. In West Memphis, Arkansas, 4 years ago, police say a gang of devil-worshipping teens tortured and killed 3 young boys. In California, 2 years ago, 3 teenage boys kidnapped and killed a schoolmate in what police say was a satanic sacrifice. And last year, police in Baton Rouge, Louisiana say a 16-year-old boy obsessed with the occult killed his mother.
To be honest with you, things that I'm sharing with you and things I run across, oftentimes when I'm seeing it, it's like, I can't believe this is happening. I don't even want to believe it sometimes, but it does occur.
But we wondered, are Purvis's professional opinions skewed by his personal beliefs? In addition to being a tenured professor, Purvis describes himself as a deeply religious man, a Christian who strongly believes Satan is a powerful force in the world today. Others are much more skeptical.
They worship the devil as a religion.
Vince Caruso was a reporter for Jackson television station WLBT and always discounted talk of Satanism. That is until he began investigating in 1989. He's not skeptical anymore.
As much as I, even as a reporter, didn't want to believe something like this existed in my own backyard, it was there, and I couldn't turn my back on it. And to tell you the truth, it was pretty darn scary.
Caruso says he found more than a dozen ritual sites, including this one hidden in the woods of Pearl.
The first thing we noticed was the bones from the animals. And then we noticed the fur and the flesh and that sort of thing, because they obviously hadn't had time to pick it up. The next thing we noticed that it was on a drop cloth. And we picked the drop cloth up, and when we did, blood just poured from it, fresh blood.
Caruso took us to one site after another.
What we found in this area is a German Shepherd at one time on a drop cloth. The heart had been cut out of the dog.
His most disturbing find was in this abandoned gravel pit.
What we found were animals, goats that had been totally skinned, their blood drained, heads had been chopped off.
In that atmosphere, Caruso says, the allegations against Luke Woodham and the others make more sense.
This was just something that was going to happen sooner or later. It didn't shock me. It didn't come as a surprise at all.
National law enforcement officials are not so sure. The FBI, for instance, says that while Satanism has been linked to many cases, it has not been the cause of any serious crime. Dr. James Fox is skeptical, too. He is Dean of Criminal Justice at Northeastern University and an expert on teen crime.
We have to take with a grain of salt, maybe even the whole salt shaker, this notion that Satanism and satanic worship was a causal factor.
According to Fox, the problem is not Satanism, but bored and alienated kids.
Have you seen any evidence that Satanism is affecting juvenile crime?
To a very small degree. Many kids in our country feel desperate, hopeless, and they're looking for something in their lives. And many of them are finding violence, not necessarily Satanism.
For some teens, Fox says, Satanism is a convenient way to rebel.
If you live in a part of the country where religion is indeed strong, how better to rebel against the authority figures than to join a satanic cult?
Is it possible that you are too far removed from the reality of what's happening in these towns to see it?
Well, that very well could be. I'm not there, and I'm not seeing the evidence directly. But I will tell you that satanic worship has traditionally been a very convenient scapegoat.
But Fox says, whether widespread or isolated, whether just flirtation or obsession, any teen involvement with Satanism is cause for concern.
It reflects the fact that he or she is probably very unhappy, doesn't feel good about themselves, has low self-esteem, and is searching for something in their lives.
Back in Pearl, people are still searching for answers, trying to understand what transformed these angry outcasts into accused murderers.
I was really surprised.
But Rick Brown thinks he knows what caused his friends to change.
I believe it was Satan. I believe it was the devil.
Devil worship is expected to figure strongly in the prosecution's conspiracy case against the teens arrested after the Pearl High School shooting. The first trial is set for February.
Coming up next, has the time for tall women